Chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. Today's Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, and I'm calling to order this meeting of the committee in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building, as well as over the Zoom platform. The time is 2:37 p.m., which you'll note is 2 hours and 37 minutes past the time we were supposed to start due to the legislative meeting that just adjourned. I want to thank all of our witnesses and those watching for their patience. It's unusual for a delay like today's to happen. But anyway, we've all had to wait for this to start, so I'm going to keep my opening very short. The topic of today's hearing is the mayor's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and fiscal year 2025 supplemental budget for the Department of Public Works. The mayor's proposal adds $13 million to DPW's operating budget. Normally I'd celebrate that, but I have concerns about the why and the how. Most of that enhancement seems to be on a temporary initiative rather than improving consistency and quality of course services. The enhancement includes $10 million from stormwater management special purpose revenue funds. This could pose a major risk to other programs in DC government and potentially put the district out of compliance with the Clean Water Act. I'm not interested in allowing that to happen on my watch as committee chair, and there's much more to discuss with the public and the agency, so I'd like to move on to our public witnesses. The usual rules apply. If you're on the Zoom, we're going to call your name and promote you to the panel. You got to accept the invitation. And if you are in the room, when I call your name, please sit down at the table. Everyone has 5 minutes if they're from an organization and 3 if they are not. We will watch the clock. We ask you to watch the clock too. I'm going to make sure everyone gets their time today, even though we're starting late, but I'm not going to give anybody extra time. So just monitor yourself. All right. Our first panel includes Chris Weiss, Executive Director, DC Environmental Network, Marcy Birnbaum, DC Public Restrooms, Stacy Cloyd, Catherine Swanson Palmer, Commissioner ANC 1C09, and Eve Hamilton, Zero Waste Committee of the DC chapter of Sierra Club. Let's see, come on over and sit at the table if I've called your name, please. We are in the process of promoting people in the Zoom. If not everybody is here, I may add someone to the panel. Just stand by. Okay, we've got everyone but Eve here. Oh, you're Eve. I'm sorry. We've got you here in the room. Okay, so what I may do, add some folks who are here in the room to this panel. Exactly. It's a little awkward, right? Okay, so who do I see in the room? I see Max Broad is here. Come on to the table. Is Brenda? I don't see Brenda Lee Richardson. Is Julia Tutt here? Mark Friend here? I don't see Mark Friend. Can't tell from here who's virtual and who's in the room. Any other public witnesses here testifying in person? Come on over. We're going to fill up this panel. All right, we're going to start with the people in the room, and then we'll go to the people in the Zoom in the order that I called you. If I called you up to the table without saying your name, please do make sure you let us know who you are. All right. Eve, why don't you begin? It's no problem. Who would like, we'll just go from this end then. Yep. You're going to go after her. All right. We're flexible here. Let's start with Commissioner Henchman.
Commissioner Bishop Henchman from ANC 5F. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for hosting this important hearing on the priorities of the Department of Public Works and the 26 budget. I've submitted for the record in my written statement 3 resolutions that ANC 5F has passed that we're hopeful the committee will ensure are contained within the budget, and I'll just speak to each of those 3 resolutions very briefly. One is requesting that DPW enter into a memorandum of understanding on snow removal of the Bryant Street Bridge, which connects the Rhode Island Avenue Metro Station with Eckington and Edgewood to the west. Every snow season, including this most recent one, DPW forgets about this bridge, forgets about pre-treating it, and then forgets about removing the snow and ice afterwards. This year, it took repeated inquiries by 3 ANC commissioners, including this one, the intervention of 2 council members, including this one, and the media to get the bridge cleared after several days. Each year, DPW reassures this committee that they will not forget it, and then it happens again. So we respectfully request that the budget include a directive to DPW to negotiate an MOU specifying jurisdiction, liability, and authorization about snow pretreatment and removal on this bridge. We've got a private developer to the west, MRP Realty, and then WMATA to the east with their station. They both engage in pretreatment and removal activities. They're eager to help and pitch in, especially on the approaches, but they need an MOU to be able to do that. And additionally, Friends of the Metropolitan Branch Trail, which is a advocacy group, is eager to help as well. So we'd love to see that included in the budget. Second item that we have a resolution on is the retention of the Throne restroom in Alethea Tanner Park, which has been utilized 10,704 times over the past year, or nearly 30 times per day. I would hesitate to describe how the park might look if this amenity is removed. I frequently hear positive comments, and rarely in government, unanimously positive comments about this amenity, its cleanliness, its availability, its ease of use. It enables community events in the park. It enables the playground to be utilized nearby. And it is an unfortunate fact that privately supplied free restrooms are rare and increasingly rare, especially outside the commercial core of the city. And we're very grateful of your leadership in making sure this pilot program was launched. This is one of 6 in the city. I think it's proven successful by all possible measures, and we hope it's retained. So we respectfully request the budget include a provision continuing the restroom in Alethea Tanner Park, either by continuing the current contract with Throne or expanding it. The third item is on public litter cans and their deployment and their rat-proofness. There's at least one Eckington constituent, I think, who's submitted testimony for the record, as she may be testifying in person also. She's got some very good ideas on rat proofing, and I know this committee has engaged in discussions with DPW on this in the past. It used to be the case that we could always, however bad our rat problem was, there was always New York City that, you know, throws their trash on the sidewalk. That at least we did better than that. Well, they're now installing rat-proof containers all over the city. They're no longer just throwing trash on. So we won't have New York City to be able to say, oh, well, at least we're not as bad as them. It remains the case that DPW, we have been able to get more litter cans placed in Eckington, thanks to this committee's help over the past couple of years in clarifying the process associated with that and making sure that they're not taking away more litter cans than they're putting in. But it remains the case that DPW is resistant to putting litter cans outside of designated truck routes or in purely resident, or what they consider purely residential areas of the city, including in Eckington, no matter the demonstrated need. Call me crazy, but if there's trash on the ground all the time and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of use, that should be the standard for determining whether we should deploy litter cans, not fairly opaque criteria. And as the committees observe, a lot of these public litter cans and residential trash cans are not rat resistant. So we respectfully request that the budget prioritize litter removal activities as you're weighing priorities, and add a proviso prohibiting DPW from denying a litter can placement request on the ground that it's in a residential area. I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broad.
Hello, Councilmember Nadeau and committee staff. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And what a great tee up from Commissioner Bishop Henchman, because I'm here to introduce the DC Responsible Rat Management Coalition. This is a new coalition focused on, made up of wildlife and pet lovers, birders, and those generally invested in reducing the spread of poisons in our ecosystems and community. We get at the heart of managing rodent populations in a way that is systemic and minimizes harm to non-target individuals, the wildlife, the pets, even the children who either ingest the poison through mistakenly eating it or preying on the poison rats. To share some background, City Wildlife, our city's beloved wildlife rehabber, they conducted an assessment of patients with rodenticide in their system, detected one or multiple poisons in 85% of animals tested. This includes squirrels, hawks, opossums, and was spread across all 4 wards. So we see this as an urgent, big issue for DC. The Department of Public Works is a key stakeholder in solving the spread of poisons. Killing rats is a temporary solution. It's a Band-Aid, whereas eliminating their food source gets at the root of the issue. That's why we promote waste exclusion techniques to prevent rats from eating organics in our trash bins, such as reinforcing trash containers, co-signing what my friend the commissioner has just expressed. Educating the public about waiting until pickup day to take out trash and not leaving the lid open, using the garbage disposal for organic materials rather than the waste bin. In addition, we strongly believe in food recovery and compost. This is not only a great rodent solution, but it's a top climate solution. We commend the Department of Public Works for rolling out the compost drop bins and strongly support the expansion of the city's organics recycling program. Beyond individual residential composting, we'd like to see DPW prioritize high-density settings. That's schools, restaurants, multifamily households. Just in closing, City Wildlife recently released a red-tailed hawk. I linked to the video in my testimony, and it's incredible. They released it over the reflecting pool in front of the Washington Monument, and it's really a sight to see. This incredible bird who had tested positive for both rodenticide and lead poisoning. Unfortunately, the hawk had lost her strength because of the poisoning and had developed sores on her feet and hocks from sitting on the ground for too long. So she had to spend weeks in the rehab facility getting vitamin K treatment to deal with the rodenticide poisoning. And fortunately, they were able to treat her and release her. Unfortunately, this is not a unique story for this hawk. She could very well get poisoned again, and many other small mammals, predators, scavengers who are being poisoned by rodenticides. That's why we must prioritize sanitation, not poison, in managing our city's rodent population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Nadeau, thank you for the opportunity to testify at the Budget Oversight hearing. My name is Eve Hamilton, and I'm an active member of the Sierra Club District of Columbia Chapter Zero Waste Committee. The Sierra Club is America's largest and most influential grassroots environmental organization with millions of members and supporters. In DC, we represent about 7,000 residents across all 8 wards. Regarding funding for zero waste activities, we are delighted that the mayor's proposed budget includes a one-time increase of approximately 2.3 million and 11 FTEs to expand residential food waste collection. However, we would appreciate greater clarity on the scale of this expansion. While the DPW chapter of the proposed budget states that 12,000 households are currently being served, DPW has stated that there are currently 9,000 households in the curbside compost program at a cost of approximately $3 million as funded in the fiscal 25 budget. Given this discrepancy, would this hearing please clarify how many households will be able to participate under the mayor's proposed allocation for fiscal year 26? And is DPW confident it can serve more households with fewer resources than it currently has? Additionally, the DC chapter of the Sierra Club supports doubling the number of households participating in the curbside compost program. Based on the mayor's proposed budget allocation and current funding of about $3 million for 9,000 households, we estimate that this would cost between $4.5 and $6 million. Doubling the mayor's proposed allocation to $4.5 million would still amount to less than 0.5% of the subsidies proposed for the RFK Stadium deal. Shouldn't we invest more in achieving our zero waste and climate goals than in subsidizing the billionaire owner of the Commanders? Beyond curbside pickup, we have not found any specific reference in the budget documents to determine whether the proposed budget provides funding to continue the staffed weekend compost drop-off events, mainly at farmers markets, as well as funding to continue or expand the highly popular Smart Compost Drop-Off Bin program. We ask at this hearing clarify the funding allocated for these key activities or key services. If no allocations have been made, we request that this committee ensure that the drop-off program not only continues, but grows. There also appears to be no specific mention of funding for a Save As You Throw pilot in the mayor's proposed budget. The Zero Waste Omnibus Amendment Act of 2020 called for a variable rate pilot study, also known as a Save As You Throw pilot, by January 2022. Action 4 of the Zero Waste DC plan calls for this pilot to take place between 2023 and 2028, yet no funding has ever been allocated for this statutorily required pilot. The Sierra Club would like to know when we can expect this long called for pilot to be funded and implemented. Variable rates lead to higher waste diversion results and less spending on trash collection and hauling services. In addition to the Save As You Throw pilot, more than half of the Zero Waste DC plan's 43 actions are designated as short-term, meaning they should be implemented between 2023 and 2028. Some, such as Action 11, single-use plastic phase-out, and Action 14, recycling and composting citywide, are to be completed by 2025. These actions respectively call for development of a policy and an ordinance. We would like to know first if DPW has begun work on implementing these two actions. And second, does DPW require funding for the implementation? If so, does the mayor's proposed budget provide the necessary funding? Since an additional 27 actions are to be implemented in the 2023-2028 timeline, we would appreciate it if DPW would clarify if any additional parts of the Zero Waste DC plan are to be funded in the fiscal 26 budget. Many of the questions and issues raised in this testimony could be answered if the Office of Waste Diversion held regular quarterly stakeholder meetings. Despite several requests, no briefing has been held this year. Finally, Councilmember Nadeau, thank you again for introducing the District Recycling Refund and Litter Reduction Act of 2025. We want to take the opportunity of this hearing to reiterate that this legislation, known as the Bottle Bill, will save the district on its recycling, hauling, and tipping fees and will present no burden on the district budget. Before closing, I would like to urge full funding for the STEER Act and Parking Enforcement Act to hold dangerous drivers accountable. Further, the district should not delay its zero emissions fleet transition by a year as proposed in the Budget Support Act. Our detailed comments on clean transportation and zero waste funding can be found in our written testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nadeau and staff, thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Stephanie Miller. I'm a Ward 4 resident, a small business owner focused on sustainability, and a member of the Sierra Club DC Chapter Zero Waste Committee, where I've focused on the DC Bottle Deposit Bill. I'd like to touch on two subjects. First is the topic of composting. As DPW knows well, diverting food waste from landfills is one of the most effective ways to meet DC's waste diversion goals and drastically reduce DC's contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. Food waste is a huge contributor to climate change. If it were a country, it would be third after the US and China as the largest contributor to climate change. So it's critical to accelerate efforts to keep food waste out of landfills, not slow them down. I applaud the district for the array of food waste drop-off options that have been made available to DC residents in recent years. I have availed myself of all three composting options offered in the district: weekend compost drop-off sites, residential compost pickup, and the new smart compost bins. To ensure accessibility across the district, these programs need to be funded and expanded, as noted in the Sierra Club's testimony. There also needs to be a strong public educational component to help residents understand why reducing food waste and composting food scraps is so important and has such a dramatic impact on our climate. I urge you to fund the expansion of all three compost programs, as well as ensuring education around them. Bringing compost collection services in-house may be less costly over time than procuring third-party contractors to provide collection, hauling, and processing services. At a roundtable you convened last year, Councilmember Nadeau, DPW spoke about the need to transition these services in-house, including making capital investments to acquire trucks. Does the mayor's proposed FY26 budget include any such transitional funding? If DPW invests in new trucks, this would also be a great opportunity to meet its fleet electrification goals. The second topic I'd like to touch on is the district's recycling program. The Office of Contract and Procurement Transparency website indicates the recycling contract solicitation period has closed. However, there's no information on which entity, if any, was awarded the contract. I hope we'll hear an update today on whether a new contractor has been selected to provide the district's recycling services, and if so, who. I would also welcome publication of the contract. If no contract has been awarded as an environmental stakeholder, I would welcome a briefing on why the award has been delayed. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from our online witnesses, starting with Chris Weiss.
Good afternoon, environmental colleagues, three of them already testifying. Chairperson Nadeau and staff, also congratulations and good afternoon to interim DPW Director Anthony Crispino. My name is Chris and I direct the activities of the DC Environmental Network. First, I'd like to associate the DC Environmental Network with the comments of the Sierra Club DC Chapter's Zero Waste Team. DCN is proud to co-lead along with the Sierra Club and Laura Nunn environmental advocates and organizations' efforts to pass the bottle bill in DC. Once passed and implemented, a bottle bill would create jobs and bring the transformational change we have needed to divert a significant amount of the district's valuable waste away from landfill and incineration. The DC Environmental Network appreciates and thanks you, Chairperson Nadeau, for your participation in our monthly breakfast last week, where you led a discussion on Mayor Muriel Bowser's proposed FY26 budget. Since then, DCN helped coordinate a successful DOEE budget hearing, which featured over 120 environmental advocates, organizations, and district residents, mostly in person, speaking to the entire budget. Former DOE Director and Ward 6 Councilmember Tommy Wells and former Ward 3 Councilmember Mary Che led the hearing with their own testimony decrying the mayor's budget. Just yesterday, over 75 advocates held a rally on the steps of the John A. Wilson Building, demanding the council work hard to fix the mayor's budget disaster. Since there were not that many council members and staff in the building yesterday morning, I wanted to share our latest thinking. We need to help the entire council to try and fix Mayor Bowser's proposed budget. Committee of Transportation and Environment Chairperson Charles Allen said last week at the government witness component of the DOE budget hearing, the 24% taken from a single agency, DOEE, is pretty shocking. I also think it's papering over the federal dollars that we're pretending are going to somehow stay leveled. That's not true, or what's happening. This isn't a 24% cut to the agency. I think it's closer to 30 to 40% because those total dollars ain't coming. I don't think this is the right budget choice. I think it's going to harm DC residents. It's going to harm our ability to grow and get projects going. It's going to harm the health of our residents. End of quote. We know you are working closely with Councilmember Allen and are thankful for your being such a collaborator. We're hoping you can reach out to other members of the council over the next few days before the committee budget reports are completed. We're also hoping you can put in a good word for us with Chairperson Mendelson as he works to finish the budget. Mayor Muriel Bowser's funding cuts to environmental programs are truly mimicking the dangerous and hurtful attack against the environment that Donald Trump is engaged in. Donald Trump would be proud of the mayor for so aggressively decimating clean energy, clean air, clean water, and other sustainability programs that are all about helping our city, our neighborhoods, our homes, and protecting and enhancing our chances of living healthy lives. DC residents, advocates, and organizations have successfully fought for investments to grow our economy and create green jobs by working to clean our rivers and air, to fight the climate crisis, reduce plastic pollution, and to create the green infrastructure that makes our city special. It's a real shame the mayor has chosen to go back in time with their dismantling of the programs that this council and her own DOEE have worked so hard to develop and implement. We know we will be fighting this battle for years to come. Look forward to continuing our partnership with you and your great staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Now we'll hear from Marcia Birnbaum. Oh, hit it one more time, Marcy. There you go.
Can you hear me now? Thank you for moving me up in the test me list. I have to run out for an important doctor's appointment. Chairperson Nadeau, members of the Committee on Public Works and Operations, Department of Public Works Interim Director Crispino. My name is Marcia Birnbaum. I am a member of DC Public Restrooms, initiated in 2015 as the People for Fairness Coalition's Downtown DC Public Restroom Initiative. In 2022, we reoriented our focus and created DC Public Restrooms. Our goal is to ensure the availability of clean, safe public restrooms for everyone in needed areas of DC. Our research and advocacy served, as you know, as the impetus for and informed the contents of Bill 220223, Public Restrooms Installation Promotion Act, introduced by you, Councilmember Nadeau, in 2017. Bill 220223 was passed unanimously by the DC Council in December 2018, and on October 1st of 2019 became Law 22280 with the same name. As Councilmember Nadeau is aware, when the Department of General Services dragged its feet in installing 2 standalone public restrooms provided for under the law, and Mayor Bowser removed funding in FY 2024 DGS budget to finance the pilots, you took the initiative to approach the Department of Public Works to make available funds in the 2024 budget to carry out the pilot. The funds added to the budget and subsequently in 2025 made it possible to contract Throne Labs to install 5 standalone public restrooms on a rental basis for a year and track their effectiveness. I'm testifying today with 2 objectives. One is to request, given the success of the District 5 district pilots, the funds be made available in DPW's FY26 budget to continuing the 5 thrones through September 30th, 2026. And the second, which goes beyond the scope of DPW, is to urge the DC government, given the need for more clean, safe public restrooms in DC, and now that the DC pilot and pilots in other studies have been successful, to increase the number of thrones available in needed areas. So in terms of the Washington, DC pilot, in April of 2025, DPW contracted, sorry, got a cat there, with Throne Labs to install, maintain, and track the effectiveness of the 5 thrones. Data collected by Throne Labs indicate that over a 1-year period, the thrones were used 63,000 times, nearly 92,000 users thought it was good or great option, and users give the thrones a 4.2 out of 5 cleanliness rating. In no case were the thrones used for illicit purposes. In a business survey carried out by Throne Labs in Washington, D.C., 50% of businesses reported less demands for restrooms in their facilities, and 97% supported adding more public restrooms. In sum, one consider the pilot as having been successful, and thank you for that, Councilmember Nadeau. So in terms of successful pilots of the Throne elsewhere and their expansions, other cities have not waited. They've jumped right in, as you know. Within the last year, since Throne Labs installed its first restrooms in DC, Thrones have also been successfully piloted in Los Angeles, California, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. The Los Angeles Metro launched a successful pilot in installing 4 thrones and has since made funding available to scale up to 64 thrones to be installed by January 2027 across the Los Angeles County. 25 will be installed next month. The city of Ann Arbor, which is much smaller, made their throne pilot permanent with 8 thrones. Thrones have also been installed in 3 other cities, California, Long Beach, Palo Alto, and Beverly Hills. So we strongly support funding the continuation of the thrones. We also strongly support their expansion to the other areas. And we are honored that Throne Labs chose Washington, D.C., given the success of our ongoing advocacy. In closing, and on behalf of DC Public Restrooms, we extend our gratitude to you, Councilmember Nadeau, and to the Department of Public Works for making these badly needed pilots possible. We hope DPW will be able to find 2026 funds to extend the pilot through September 30. And we also urge the district, given the needs and the successes of pilots, to find fundings to add more thrones in needed areas of the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear from Stacy Cloyd.
Good afternoon, Chair Nadeau. I'm a Ward 6 resident, and I would like the FY26 budget to fund increased booting and towing of vehicles with many unpaid tickets. This enforcement activity should happen on evenings and weekends in addition to its current hours, and it should prioritize the vehicles that have accrued the most fines, more than the current effort to keep roads clearer for commuters who don't even live in DC. The mayor's proposed budget would allow 2 more FTE for booting and towing and 9 more for abandoned and junk cars. That's a start, but not sufficient. We have the tow trucks. Why not use them more than 40 hours a week? Last year, it was disappointing to see DC auction tow trucks from 2017 and 2018 with under 30,000 miles each on them, still in excellent condition. We should be using our district-owned property more than that. Additional booting and towing would remove dangerous vehicles from the road, encourage people to pay tickets, or better yet, not get tickets in the first place, and register their cars to avoid booting and towing, create more parking for rule-following drivers, create pathways to the middle-class jobs for booters and towers, and take in more revenue by having people pay off their tickets or auctioning off cars. But to make these things happen, the FY26 budget must also take a few related steps. DPW needs to work with the Office of Unified Communication to make sure there's options to report boot and tow eligible vehicles and then prioritize those reports. For example, on February 13th of this year, I reported a tow eligible car with expired temp tags. DPW ticketed it instead of towing it. As of last night, DPW had issued parking tickets on 7 more occasions to this vehicle. DPW had therefore at least 8 opportunities to tow this vehicle and missed them all. Next, while booting and towing are critical, there do need to be enough DPW staff assigned to ticketing because vehicles become eligible for booting and towing based on unpaid tickets. The mayor's proposed budget would remove 63 full-time positions for parking regulation enforcement. That is going in the wrong direction for the district. Cars that break parking rules might be blocking crosswalks, fire hydrants, or other safety features, and the cars that break parking rules are often the ones that also don't follow speed limits or red lights. DC needs sufficient lots where vehicles can be towed. The council needs to provide enough funding for this. DPW and the Office of Contracting and Procurement and whoever else is involved need to work together and find appropriate space. I would recommend looking at the RFK site. And finally, DC needs to figure out a way to more efficiently auction off or scrap vehicles that have been towed. This makes more money for DC and reduces the number of spaces needed in tow lots. I previously testified to this committee about the bad van, which was finally towed in late 2023 after racking up 86 unpaid tickets. It's still showing up as redeemable on the DMV site, and I can give you 2 others that are still redeemable close to a year after being towed. I don't know why they haven't been auctioned off, but this needs to change. I'm asking the council to invest in safety, and I appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Swanson Palmer.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Catherine Swanson Palmer, and I am an advisory neighborhood commissioner for single member district 1C09. I come before you today with a strong and urgent request, which is to protect and sustain the funding proposed in DPW's budget for the expansion of the district's composting program. This initiative is not just a matter of sustainability, it is an essential tool in addressing one of the most pressing challenges our community faces: the rapid and uncontrolled growth of the rat population. In my single member district, rats have become a persistent and distressing problem. It is an issue that residents bring to my attention daily, and our streets and neighborhoods are overrun. The impact on public health, property, and quality of life is undeniable. One of the most effective ways to combat this issue that many others have touched on today is through the expansion of our composting program. By diverting food waste away from trash cans and landfills, we can remove the primary food sources that attract rats to our community. This simple yet powerful shift will help our community be cleaner, healthier, and most importantly, less hospitable to these pests. Many of the residents who reach out to me about the rat problem are not familiar with composting or its direct link to rat control. But usually once I share the information with them about DPW and zero waste composting initiative and the city's broader zero waste goals, their response is overwhelmingly positive. People seem to want to take action, and they simply need to know how and be given the resources and the tools to do so. Expanding this program will allow us to educate more residents, increase participation in the program, and ultimately make a real impact on our rat population while fostering a deeper culture of sustainability throughout the district. I strongly urge you to protect the continued funding and expansion of the composting program. This is more than just an investment in waste management. It is, as I've stated, an investment in the health and well-being of our residents and the long-term livability of our city. By supporting this program, we are taking a proactive stance not only to curb the rat population, but also to reduce our environmental footprint, keep our neighborhoods clean, and build a more sustainable future for everyone in the district. Thanks for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and thanks to this whole panel. I know we have questions on many of these items and share the general sentiment that we want to be expanding our composting programs and waste diversion programs. We want to be fully funding and expanding our pilot. Don't worry, I'll get to you, Jeremy. And we have some other in-person witnesses, so you will not be left behind. And also make sure we're doing responsible rat management. What else do we hear? Oh, and Commissioner Henchman, I know you've got your list here, the MOU on the bridge and the public litter cans. I did want to ask you, Commissioner, a bill we passed last year that needs funding would give DPW the authority and capacity to add public litter cans on residential blocks. Do you feel confident your constituents would support adding litter cans to their blocks if that were permitted?
Absolutely.
Great, very helpful. I don't have questions about what anything anybody said, so I think we'll just keep moving. But I want to thank everybody for your testimony and also for putting up with the delay today. I know everybody's time is very valuable, and we will do our next panel. Thank you. Okay. Our next panel includes Dan Israel, Compost Crew, Seth Grimes, organizer, Washington Area Bicyclists Association, Brenda Lee Richardson, coordinator, Anacostia Parks and Community Collaborative, Julia Tutt, Mark Friend, Commissioner, ANC 7006, Jennifer Vaughn, Jeremy Brzezowski, founder and CEO, Agricity LLC, Jessica Henselman, co-founder and chief operating officer, Throne Labs, and Terrell Monroe, senior operating manager of DC Throne. I think we have enough seats for everybody that I just called in person. Yes. Okay. Everybody else is virtual. All right. So we're gonna, actually go in the order that I called, since all of our in-person witnesses were in the right order. So we'll start with Dan Israel.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau and other members of the council, for the opportunity to submit testimony on behalf of our CEO, Ben Perry, who was going to be here, but the later hour prevented him from being here. I am going to provide our testimony for Compost Crew. We are the district's contractor for the curbside composting program, which began in 2023. The district's progress on composting food scraps over the last 2 years has been impressive. In addition to rolling out the curbside program, which diverted 2.2 million pounds of food scraps from the landfill in 2024, the smart bins, which offer readily available composting locations now throughout the city, which are ideal for apartment dwellers and people who missed collection or other reasons. At the same time, as I think most people here know, tens of millions of pounds of food scraps are still being sent to the landfill in the district. So we all have our work cut out for us. The success of the curbside program this far, with 9,000 households more or less participating, is an encouraging sign that DC residents are ready and willing to embrace composting. I know that the district proposes to scale this up to reach 60,000 homes over the next several years. You need to recognize that this transition will require more than simply adding homes to service routes. It will require thoughtful, well-resourced investment in education and outreach to ensure that all district households are aware of the program. They understand why their participation matters. As one of the witnesses earlier pointed out, people are coming concerned about the rat problem, and they don't realize the connection between composting and helping to reduce the rat population, and also learn how people can participate effectively in the program. We at Compost Crew and our partner, Compost Cab, you'll hear from Jeremy in a few minutes, are very proud to have been part of the DC Curbside program from its inception in 2023. Please don't think of us just as contractors. Our companies had already been providing curbside collection for a decade. Before the DPW program began, our experience helped lay the groundwork for making this DPW program successful by making people aware of composting, having the staff and equipment ready to roll so that we could bring the service rapidly to 9,000 homes when this all got started 21 months ago. Our expertise in routing, operations, customer service, etc., all made a significant contribution to the success of the program and how quickly it was able to roll out, and the very satisfied customers who are participating or residents of DC who are participating in the program thus far. We definitely are ready, willing, and able to help the district figure out how to expand to that 60,000 home target in the next several years in the most cost-effective way possible. So as the district prepares to bring tens of thousands more homes into the program, we want to encourage the council and DPW to proactively think about the issue of processing capacity. As this program grows and other programs throughout the area grow, it will place significant demands on the composting facility in Prince George's County. The district should start to plan now for this expanded processing infrastructure as we also collect more from businesses, apartments, and others throughout the region. Whether we figure out public investment, private partnerships, or collaborations across the region, there will be the need in the not too distant future for more capacity in the region. And if we don't have that capacity, we risk undermining this great program that we all are enthusiastic about. So in closing, expanding the curbside program is more than just a waste diversion strategy. It's a visionary step towards a circular economy, a healthier climate, and stronger sense of shared responsibility in our community. We thank the council and the mayor for making the commitment so far and championing these policies that are building a better future. With great public education, strong vendor partnerships, and forward-thinking planning for infrastructure, this program truly has the potential to become a national model for urban composting. Thanks again for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Grimes.
Councilmember Nadeau, thank you. I am Seth Grimes, speaking on behalf of the Washington Area Bicyclist Association and its 5,000 members and nearly 25,000 regional advocacy supporters. We appreciate the opportunity to testify on this occasion. The district's bicyclists and micro-mobility users rely on and value the city's bike lane and trail network. We deserve safe, well-maintained infrastructure, which, related to the Department of Public Works responsibilities, means bike lanes clear of leaves, debris, illegally stopped or parked vehicles, and snow and ice. Bike lane obstructions are hazardous and often dangerously force riders into motor vehicle traffic lanes and onto the sidewalk. Earlier this year, during performance oversight hearings, we learned that DPW deploys 8 bike lane sweepers and tackles a ward's lanes each week in rotation, and also responds to bike lane cleaning requests. Leaves can make bike lanes hazardous by hiding large debris and creating traction issues when wet. DPW leaf crews do a thorough job, but a more timely response is needed to clear bike lanes and avoid unsafe conditions, more timely than a 8-week rotation cycle. We will reiterate another point made at the time of the performance oversight hearings, that bicyclists asked DPW to clear snow and ice from bikeways much more quickly and proactively, and also a major concern for pedestrians to ensure that snow and ice do not obstruct intersection crossings and bus stops. Our experience this last winter was mounds of snow blocking crossings, making routes uncomfortable or even unpassable. Finally, we are pleased with progress on a related front. We learned in May that, quoting, DPW is in the process of creating a new service request for bike lane cleaning with a proposed 6 business day SLA, service level agreement, per the Office of Unified Communications. The Office of Unified Communications stated plans to go live with this request at the start of FY26. Councilmember Nadeau and Director Crispino, our thanks to you and your colleagues for helping make this happen. We ask DPW for an additional DC 311 update to allow community members to report maintenance needs on bike lanes and trails where there is no street address, a current challenge. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today and for your consideration and service.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next, we'll turn to Jeremy Brzezowski.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau, and to this committee and the staff and everyone here in person or streaming at home. I'm Jeremy Brzezowski, and for the past 15 years, I've been operating Agricity, a sustainability company based here in the nation's capital. We're best known for Compost Cab, our pioneering community composting service. And I will thank all of my colleagues and friends in the room and not in the room who have been singing the praises of composting generally. I will have written testimony submitted, and I will make this testimony a little bit shorter. I did want to provide a little bit of context as we embark on, as this committee considers the oversight of DPW in what we all recognize as a challenging year, budget and otherwise. But first, I wanted to provide a little context. I am a proud citizen of Ward 1, and I'm proud to say that we've been at the forefront of the district's composting efforts for a decade and a half. When we first launched a regular farmers market drop-off point in partnership with Fresh Farm in 2011, we did so independently, and it made us extraordinarily proud in 2017 when, with the leadership of this committee, the district invested in a food scrap drop-off program, and we were lucky enough to win the contract and be hired to run it. With the exception of a procurement-related snafu last year, we've been doing so ever since. Every week, we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 people drop off about 6 tons of food scraps in a 36-hour window. And it's only possible because the city makes it possible. Over the course of this program, the farmers market drop-offs have seen more than 820,000 visitors to the city's tents, and we've diverted nearly 5.5 million pounds of food scraps. It is an extraordinary, powerful example of what is possible when individuals take action. Each individual bag that shows up at market is rounding error, but you take them in concert and it turns out that it moves the needle. In 2023, when the district was finally ready to launch a curbside pilot, it was modeled largely on the sort of programs that we've been running independently going back to 2010. And we are very proud to be working with our friends at Compost Crew in concert with the district and the Department of Public Works to ensure the success of this program. Now serving nearly 9,000 households, give or take, it is slated to grow to 12,000 households under the mayor's proposed budget. And under the terms of a still open procurement, it is suggested that we will get to 60,000 households by fiscal 2030. This is the most ambitious commitment that the city has ever made to composting, and it's a lot to be proud of. But wait, there's more. This year, we've been working with DPW to help them launch this smart bin program, which everyone has seen on the streets. A lot of people have been talking about it. There are now 30 bins located across the city that have created expanded accessibility for all 24/7. The uptake has exceeded our wildest expectations. We're seeing a run rate for the month of June that is nothing short of extraordinary with minimal contamination. So that's the context. We've been working at this as a city. My personal compost journey has been going on for 15 years now. And I didn't think it would quite take this long, but I have to say, I feel like we are in a very good spot. Our managers at the Office of Waste Diversion and the Department of Public Works are working very, very hard to ensure the success of these efforts. And so are, as my friend Dan Israel pointed out, the city's composting contractors. It seems like we have a path, or at least the makings of a path, to zero waste, at least when it comes to organics recycling. And so we should be encouraged. My challenge to the committee as we kind of move forward is to encourage the mayor and as a council to really put the pedal down. Like, this is an opportunity for us to take a national lead and to use this pivotal moment that we have as a city to change the kind of citizenry we are. We can be a greener, more sustainable city, but it involves a change in culture, and that culture change happens in part when you make everything visible. So the curbside program, the drop-off program at markets, the smart bins, all of them together create a visibility and a momentum around composting that is really, really exciting. So I would urge you to do a few things specifically. One, please keep an eye on the procurement process. Oftentimes, we have seen in the past that DPW can get bogged down in the administration of OCP, and these are programs that are important to people, and these things have a way of dragging on. So we would urge you to keep an eye on the procurement process to make sure there are not only no gaps in service, but there are opportunities to grow. Two, I would encourage you to double down on what's working. Three, I would urge you to align residential and multi-unit and commercial requirements so that when as we look at a 5-year time frame, there's a path for everyone to be composting, not just homeowners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jessica. Just push the little, oh, awesome. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us. Good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau and staff and members of the committee. And I wanted to just shout out thank you to Commissioner Bishop Henchman. It's always wonderful to have a surprise advocate in the crowd. I'm Jess Heinzelman, co-founder and chief operating officer of Throne Labs. Thank you for your leadership in critical public restroom infrastructure needs and for the opportunity to speak to you all today. Your committee understands the basic human dignity requires access to public restroom infrastructure. And the data tells a clear story. DC has one public restroom per 10,000 resident, per 100,000 or 10,000 residents, sorry. And our collaborative survey with DPW revealed that 96% of residents and visitors believe DC needs more public bathrooms. Off the National Mall, our nation's capital has just 5 restrooms available during the day and only 2 available 24/7, a situation unworthy of a world-class city like DC. Working closely with DPW, DDOT, and DPR, our March 2024 pilot program has exceeded all expectations. 6 strategically placed units achieved a 4.15 average cleanliness rating out of 5. 0 instances requiring law enforcement intervention, and a very few incidents involving minor graffiti, instances of vandalism. We've seen a 12% increase in usage over the pilot period, demonstrating the growing community trust and the need. Most importantly, we've listened to your constituents. Of 543 community survey responses, 92% rated Throne as a good or great solution. Users write, "These have saved me and the kids from disaster multiple times." And one parent shared, "This is literally such a game changer for how walkable DC can be." Our independent business impact study surveying 33 establishments across 6 neighborhoods in DC revealed the economic benefit you've championed. 50% of businesses near Thrones reported a reduced operational burden, allowing them to focus on serving customers rather than managing restroom access. There's also a notable decrease in public defecation near businesses with Thrones. Unfortunately, this proven program wasn't included in the mayor's budget proposal. We respectfully request your committee and the full council support for $1 to $1.4 million in permanent funding to expand the current public restroom pilot from 6 Thrones to at least 10 to 15 to meet additional demand and ensure our continued operations do not result in a loss. Permanent funding also ensures reliable vendor partnership. This year's payments delays threatened service continuity and strained our ability to maintain the high standards DC residents and visitors deserve. Chairperson Nadeau, we thank you for your commitment to making the public restroom pilot a success, and we hope the rest of the council also champions infrastructure that will serve all residents with dignity while supporting local businesses. We're committed to working collaboratively with you and DC to make it more accessible and equitable. I've included the full business survey, the critical need for public restrooms in the District of Columbia, a business perspective, a 1-pager on Throne and the pilot results, the Hill family biking case study, and the community survey for your review. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Monroe.
Good afternoon, Chair Nadeau and members of the committee. I'm Terrell Monroe, Ward 4 resident and Thrones DC Ops Manager. Thank you for your commitment to improving quality of life for the district residents and for your previous support for this vital infrastructure investment. Through my work across DC neighborhoods, I've observed how restroom accessibility impacts daily life for families, workers, and local business owners. The data suggests we have a promising path forward to better serve residents. Our data reveals the challenge local businesses face. A U Street business manager told me that on weekends, we basically are a public restroom for U Street. Half my job is managing the store, the other half is cleaning restrooms, fights, defecation, drug use. It scares away the real customers. I wish we had another place to send them. When we asked what would encourage businesses to open their restrooms publicly, 77% said nothing would convince them. 100% cited safety, cleanliness, vandalism, and illegal activity are barriers. These aren't unreasonable concerns. They're legitimate businesses challenges that public infrastructure should address, and challenges that Throne restrooms have overcome with our unique technology, such as our anti-loitering systems. Throne's impact reaches far beyond individual businesses. Hill Family Biking now plans half of their rides to end at a Throne's locations, allowing families to stay 3 times longer at community events. Their Halloween ride last year drew a record 370 cyclists to Eastern Market, demonstrating how public restroom infrastructure drives both economic activity and community connection. The community responses has been overwhelming. Users tell us these are great. It has saved me and my kids from disaster multiple times. Another shared, this is one of the best public services I can think of. Parents write, we need these in all parks. Many of the businesses we speak to are also in full support. 97% of surveyed businesses support adding more public restrooms to reduce the unfair burden they currently have. This isn't just about bathrooms. It's about creating an environment where businesses can thrive and residents can participate fully in city life. We're requesting $1 to $1.4 million for permanent program funding. This investment ensures reliable services and builds on the trust we've built with communities. Chair Nadeau, your leadership has transformed DC into a city where basic human needs are met with dignity, where businesses can focus on growth rather than managing public health issues, and where families feel welcome in public spaces. DC is the premier destination to live, work, play. We need public restrooms to do so comfortably. Thank you for your consideration. I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. I never thought that food waste in bathrooms would get me so choked up, but this panel really got me here. Thank you all for your testimony, this whole panel. Mr. Grimes, duly noted. Mr. Israel, thank you for all your hard work. I have a couple questions for this panel. Mr. Brzezowski, you talked about, putting the pedal to the floor. As we do that, what are the areas that you think are most critical to scale up first, or how would you approach that?
Thank you for that question. So I do think that the city is currently taking and should continue to take what I think of as a yes and approach. There is no single solution here. There is no magic bullet. But when you take each of these individual components and you continue to invest in all of them, and then you double down on what's working. When we're working off of such a relatively small base, they're all working. Right. So
Right.
when the Smart Bin program started, you would expect that you would see a significant decrease in the farmers market program, because people who have only had one place to bring it on the weekend are now participating citywide. We are not seeing a move of one to the other. It is all accretive. So the proof is in the pudding. When you make it there, this is very much an example of, if you build it, they will come. And so when you make it freely available and easy for people at home, they will happily participate. When you put bins on the street, they will happily drop it off. So when I look at the budget and I look at the long-term path, I assume, and have assumed for 15 years, that composting will eventually look a lot like trash and recycling. My hope is that since we're basically starting from scratch, that there's an opportunity not to do it as well, but to do it much, much better.
Yeah.
And so as we make the transition from the pilot program to a full-on commitment to universal composting over time by the city, the assumption is that DPW is going to be really good at it.
I love the assumption. So let's work with that. Thank you for that. And okay, to my Thrones colleagues here. I would like your recommendation, if you have one, on a Ward 7 location. Is that something you've thought about? Oh, hit your button so I can hear you too.
Yes, I think we're happy to look at specific locations. We have received requests that I think we will be providing a list of potential locations and
Okay.
and locations where we've also received requests. And I believe that Marvin Gaye Park is in District 7 and is a potential location that was specifically requested during the pilot.
Super. The Ward 7 council member would like one.
Great. That's
Yes.
great news.
He doesn't have a committee, so that doesn't help me because he doesn't have any money, but it's nice that he likes it. It does seem like every council member that has a throne or two is very eager to help restore the pilot. So we are all working together on that, as well as making it a permanent program. So thank you. Thanks, everybody, for your testimony. That concludes the testimony from our public witnesses. Wow, 1 hour on the dot. Nice job, everybody, being communicative and concise at the same time. We appreciate you. We'll now be joined by our government witnesses, including Anthony Crispino, Interim Director of the Department of Public Works, Christine Davis, General Counsel of the Department of Public Works, and Perry Fitzpatrick, Agency Fiscal Officer for DPW at the Office of the Chief Financial Officer. Before you sit down, I will administer our oath to you. You could raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you are about to give to the Committee on Public Works and Operations is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Very good. You may begin your testimony when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nadeau, committee members that may be watching, council members and staff. I'm Anthony Crispino, the Interim Director of DC's Department of Public Works. Today, I'm joined by our Agency Fiscal Officer, Perry Fitzpatrick, and our General Counsel, Christine Davis. This budget cycle has been unlike any in recent history here in the district. DC was subjected to an artificial budget emergency created when the United States House of Representatives failed to correct a legislative oversight in the current continuing resolution. Based upon the collective efforts of the mayor, the city administrator, and OBPM director Jennifer Reed, the district overcame a $1 billion shortfall that resulted from the inability to fully execute the previously approved FY25 budget. Looking to ensure financial stability in future budget cycles, Mayor Bowser has worked hard to develop a growth agenda for the district. That agenda shaped the FY26 Grow DC budget we are here to discuss today. Each line item in the proposed budget was created by asking one of three core questions. Does it impact people? Does it create economic activity? And does it attract business? Applying those questions to each of the core services that the Department of Public Works provides results in a resounding yes. Recognizing the role DPW will play in effectuating her growth agenda, Mayor Bowser has proposed an operating budget of $198,699,971 for the agency in FY26. That's a 6.7 increase over the budget for the current fiscal year. The agency's proposed FY26 capital budget is $46,723,350. While this represents a modest decrease, the change reflects the needs of the agency and the types of equipment to be purchased. Here are some of the highlights of Mayor Bowser's FY26 combined budget for the agency, which include $4.6 million to keep the 80 temporary employees supporting the mayor's Clean Corridors initiative on for the entire fiscal year. $2.3 million to expand the agency's curbside composting program from 9,000 to 12,000 households across the district. $687,000 to continue the use of a swing shift within the collections division to improve consistency of household trash and recycling collection while reducing overtime costs. $300,000 to implement a new electronic time and attendance platform to improve scheduling, create efficiency, and further reduce personnel costs in that division. And $22.3 million to purchase new heavy, medium, and light-duty vehicles for trash and recycling collection and snow removal operations. It can't be overstated that these investments will allow DPW to meet the current needs of the district while building capacity to address the growth the mayor is cultivating. Clean public space is one of the catalysts to keep families in the district, create economic activity, and to attract new business. The proposed budget allows DPW's strong support for downtown and other commercial areas, especially in our business improvement districts or BIDs, to continue in FY26. We look forward to being able to enhance how we provide solid waste services, enforce sanitation regulations for residential and commercial properties, undertake parking enforcement to ensure curbside parking in business districts, promote traffic flow, and target enforcement of scofflaw vehicles, remove snow for safe travel, and provide support for the special events that the district hosts. I would like to thank Mayor Bowser for proposing a budget that equips DPW to carry out its responsibilities under her transformational growth plan, Grow DC, in fiscal year 2026. I would also like to thank City Administrator Kevin Donahue for the opportunity to lead the agency during this pivotal budget cycle. In addition, I am grateful to you, Madam Chair, for your ongoing support of DPW, our employees, and the services we provide the district. This concludes my testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed budget for the mayor, and we are prepared to answer your questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Just starting with some of the questions raised by public witnesses. Is the commissioner's request for an MOU on Bryant Street Bridge snow clearance something that DPW can execute?
I'd have to defer to Ms. Davis on the legal aspects of it, but I have dealt with the commissioner before regarding the bridge. It is something that seems to be reoccurring. Given that we're talking about WMATA being involved, there may be a possibility that we could enter into an MOU, but it was something I'd need to explore with legal first.
Who on the team would be responsible for negotiating the agreement?
It would probably be me and Ms. Davis talking with our counterparts at WMATA.
Ms. Davis, any concerns about being able to execute an MOU? No. Okay. Can you provide an update on the recycling contract that's with OCP?
It's my understanding that the contract is still, because of the issues that were involved in the dollar amount, that it is at OAG undergoing legal sufficiency. That was the last update that I got from OCP.
That's usually the last step, right?
I believe so, yes.
And then it'll come here.
Yes.
Hopefully it won't come here just before we recess.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Good testimony today about the public restrooms. Is there a program manager for the public restrooms?
Not a dedicated position within the Schedule A, no.
Do you think it makes sense to have a full-time person now that we're going to make it a permanent program?
If it were to become permanent and with some of the suggestions that were made by the witnesses to expand, then yes, it would benefit from having a project manager.
Great, thank you. Just consider that our FTE tax.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, so moving on to some agency management. What DPW services are impacted by the district overtime freeze?
There were no impacts. Even under the process that was imposed, we were able to get approval.
Okay. So you had to, did you have to file waivers?
Yes.
Okay. And how much has DPW overspent on overtime this year to date and FY24?
In FY25, we spent $10.4 million of a $2 million budget. So we're $8 million over budget as of May 31st. And last year we spent $13.6 million total, and that's over the $2 million overtime budget that we had in 24 as well.
You were 2 million over last year? I'm sorry?
10 million.
You were 10 million over last
Yes.
year.
Well,
Okay,
8 million over. We had a $2 million budget and we spent $10.4 million.
got it. So it seems like you were on track to exceed the overage from last year.
Correct.
Okay. And is that attributable to snow and presidential events or?
That's a combination, snow, presidential events, collections, which is constantly a driver of our overtime. as
Right.
always. Yes.
Right. Right. Your testimony highlights $300,000 for new time and attendance software. Can you talk about how that can improve operations and reduce overtime costs?
Yeah, so as this team moves the agency towards modernization, we are looking to update how we do time and attendance. Right now, it still involves the use of timekeepers. Some of the process is still done on paper. By implementing the system that we're looking at, we will have greater accountability. It would involve the employees actually tapping in, which would allow us to know when they're on shift, when they're leaving shift, when we change over from regular time over to overtime. And then that would actually give the managers the ability to print out reports to make operational decisions on the fly, as opposed to waiting to the end of each or not payroll cycle. So that's the high level what we hope it can do.
Is a timekeeper a person or a device?
That's a person.
Okay, so it's humans and paper right now,
Correct.
and you want to go to an electronic system where people tap in and tap out?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you, so can you talk more about having that information during a shift, or I'm sorry, during a pay period, and how that influences the decisions that are being made regarding overtime?
So for instance, sticking with collections, because that's where we would look to implement it at first. Each morning, you have a set number of trash and recycling routes that need to be staffed each day. The managers are working off of paper lists. So as employees are coming in, they're having to take the paper lists, compare them to each other to then figure out where they might have staffing shortages, and then use that information to figure out how they backfill the shortages on the routes. If we have the employees tapping in, they're tapping in within a certain time window, we're able to generate a list much faster, and then we'd be able to backfill and ensure that the routes are being completed within the SLAs.
Wow, the current system seems really tedious.
That's an understatement.
Would this help? So you can use this in waste management, can you use it in street sweeping and snow plowing and all of that?
That's where the hope is to test it first in collections, and then
Mhm.
yes, as the budget allows in out years, expand it out to the other divisions.
Okay, so the 300,000 doesn't cover everybody.
No, not at first.
Okay. Is it, what's the scaling? What's the cost of scaling?
I'd have to get you that information. I don't know off the top of my head, but my chief information officer is working with the vendor we'd like to hopefully work with, and the office of the chief technology officer to figure that out.
Is the ability to scale a funding constraint or a logistical one?
I think it's more logistical than funding.
Okay. Alongside the $300,000, your budget chapter narrative notes an additional 90,000 for software acquisitions. What software is that?
That 90,000 is for Rubicon, our geotech, or geo tracking software that we currently have.
And that's on vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. That's how we know where the plows are?
Crash pickup.
Crash,
Mhm.
bulk,
Okay.
and to a degree, the plows as well.
Mhm. On the topic of software, what's the status of the software update for PIMA and SWEEP?
I believe that's also at OAG undergoing legal sufficiency.
Is there sufficient funding?
It's my understanding, yes. I haven't heard to the contrary.
Once we get the actual numbers and know what the costs are, we can make that determination. We'll be able to better understand what the ticket item or cost is to run both systems parallel, because once you implement the system, you're going to have to run it parallel with the system that we have. So we're not going to be able to just implement a new system and scrap the old one. So we're going to have to, once we get that information, we'll be able to make that decision.
Oh, so this software, you're talking about running it simultaneous with the Kronos?
No,
Yep.
simultaneously with the current system that we have in place. Because you can't just scrap, once we implement and get the new system, we have to run them parallel, to make sure there's no glitches and things of that nature.
Well, and just to be clear, Kronos is a separate system.
Okay.
The PIMA system that we're talking about is G-Technic.
Okay.
G-Techna. And that's different than Kronos.
Okay. Okay. Is that the ticketing software? Is that how they use it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then. Is there recurring funding for the swing shifts?
The swing shifts are funded in 2026 as one time, if I'm not mistaken.
Would there be a noticeable return on investment if we were able to add resources for additional swing shifts?
I believe it would result in greater savings, and this is exhibited by the $1.2 million reduction in overtime and collections from 23 to 24. When we implemented the swing shift, which is approximately 24.3% reduction in overtime in the collections division year over year.
Good job. Told you could do it, Perry. Okay. Do you plan to send citywide mailers to households in FY26 for public education?
Yeah, I believe so, yes. And that would probably be we typically do that for LEAF, and I believe OWD, the Office of Waste Diversion, does it in connection with commercial recycling to do education and outreach.
Mm-hmm. What services or areas are you targeting? Okay, so you said leave commercial. All right. How many mailer campaigns can you support with the current funding?
I guess that would depend on the scale of the program. I don't know off the top of my head, but I could get that number for you.
Any other outreach or education activities that could use more resources?
Never going to say no to more money to make sure that we have what we need to educate the residents. If I had to pick an area, I would probably say in sweep, just with general regulations around sanitation and general cleanliness in the residential areas and some of the commercial areas as well.
Do you feel like you have sufficient comms on things like collections and slide dates and all that?
We handle that internally in our comms department, given the number of social media platforms that we participate on. I feel like we have pretty good coverage across the city. We get the message out pretty far and wide.
All right. And what program activities does the shift differential budget cover?
The shift differential is for nighttime activities such as prowl, litter can pickup, PIMA with the ROSA enforcement and towing, special events and solid waste, and fleet mechanics in the Fleet Management Administration.
The proposed budget seems to include a $1.7 million reduction in funds for building maintenance and repairs. Is that funding that's shifted elsewhere, or is that a true reduction?
That is a reduction of the one-time security enhancement that was budgeted in that division last year in FY20, or in this current year in FY25.
Do you no longer need those funds?
The security will be handled by DGS is what our understanding is.
Which site is that?
Multiple sites. We have multiple sites within our organization, within our portfolio that require security guards.
Do you have an increase anywhere in the budget to pay DGS for that?
DGS, we're not paying DGS. DGS is picking up that tab.
Really?
Yes, they're responsible for what they do is they do an assessment for what we need on an annual basis. So this past year, they didn't have our sites on that assessment. So this outlying years, they're supposed to have those sites budgeted into our assessments.
Oh, and they don't bill you for that the way they do to keep the lights on and such.
No.
That's good.
Well, they don't bill us to keep our lights on either.
Oh, there used to be that fee they charged everybody. Okay, moving on. Solid waste management. Can you explain what the Clean Corridors Initiative does?
Absolutely. That's something I like talking about.
All right.
So Clean Corridors is an initiative that the mayor asked us to develop. It was born out of an action we took on Georgia Avenue in which there were areas that needed some a little bit more than tender loving care. They had kind of fallen behind in terms of service. So what we did over the course of 3 days, we flooded the area with crews, escalation, alleys, street sweeping, graffiti, and I believe we went from Howard University Hospital all the way up to the Maryland border and removed over 70 tons of material. We got DOB involved to help us with some of the properties that were blighted. I don't remember off the top of my head how many graffiti tags we removed, but in any event, the mayor was impressed with the results that she saw from both agencies and asked us to expand a pilot along the same lines, and that's where the Clean Corridors program was born out of. So what it currently entails has three components. The main 15 main arterial streets. I can get you the list so that you can see which ones they are. The highways, which would be 295, 695, and then graffiti. And the mayor in this budget has given us funding to keep the 80 employees that we currently have in the program on for the entire fiscal year. The benefit to that is that those employees, instead of rolling back into leave season this fall, they will stay on in Clean Corridors and only focus on those areas of responsibility, whereas we'll have the full complement of the 210 seasonal employees to focus on leave.
Are all 80 FTEs currently filled?
I think right now we're at 77 due to some personnel issues, but we're backfilling and we'll remain at the full 80.
So do those folks do, I mean, what are they doing? Hand sweeping, hauling? What are they doing?
Everything. They'll do vegetation management, they'll do debris removal, litter picking. They can call in, they have a sweeper at their disposal that they can call in to help if they need, something more than hand sweeping as you're referring to. The graffiti crews, they have their own trucks and equipment where they go out just as if they were one of the FTEs that we had prior to the initiation of the program, and they go out and they'll abate any type of graffiti they come across, or posters, stickers, things of that nature.
Is there information about the initiative published online?
So we haven't put that on the website yet. That's definitely something that I'll have to get comms to do. It's something that we'd want to promote and make sure that the public's aware that when they're out and about and they're seeing the crews on the highway or they're seeing the crews on the arterial streets working, that they understand what the task is and what's being accomplished. And we definitely want to make sure that the public is aware of the tonnage that we're bringing in and the number of tags we're abating.
How are the arterial streets chosen?
As memory serves me, we looked at the map to see which were the busiest corridors in and out of the district that were impacted by commuter traffic, and those were the ones that we just kind of focused on.
Is it meant to be a year-round program?
Yes, it will continue through the winter.
How does Clean Corridors differ from how the beautification program has operated in the past?
So they're one and the same. So beautification is just the umbrella term for all three of the subcomponents.
Okay, and the subcomponents are the
Arterial roads,
okay.
graffiti, and then the highways.
Oh, okay. So those are considered three separate things.
At least internally, yes. That's what we consider them.
Okay. Is there still a standalone graffiti removal team?
Yes, there are also crews that just go out and handle service requests that are coming that are not related just to arterial areas or beautification.
How were the 80 FTEs funded in the current fiscal year?
We are currently getting funding from the mayor. We used some leftover funding from the snow program in 2025 to fund part of that initiative as well.
What does it mean to be getting funding from the mayor?
That they're going to provide funding before the end of the year for the remainder of the fiscal year.
As a reprogramming?
Evidently so.
So it's already been spent. So if the council doesn't like where it's being reprogrammed from, too bad.
You wouldn't do that to us.
I mean, I know this is the problem with reprogramming after the fact is we don't have a choice. Okay, the budget book refers to a consistently clean city initiative. Is that the same as Clean Corridors?
I believe so.
Clean City Initiative, Clean City Fund.
The Consistently Clean City Initiative. It's in the budget book. If you haven't heard of it, we got a
I
problem.
believe it's the same.
You think it's the
I
same?
don't think there's a separate standalone, but I'll double check and confirm for you guys.
All right. Do you worry about public confusion between this and the Office of the Clean City?
I don't.
Your chair's a little confused, so you might want to worry about it a little bit.
I'll make sure that there's some clarification.
Okay. All right. So we funded 4 sweep inspectors in the FY25 budget last year. Have those FTEs been hired?
2 of the 4 have been hired, and the other 2 were eliminated to meet mark reductions in the budget formulation process.
Mm-hmm. How many additional inspectors are funded in the mayor's proposed FY26 budget?
I don't believe any are.
Can you please explain what's going on with the $9.2 million increase in the IT maintenance budget for signed sweeping?
That $9.2 million is a part of the signed street sweeping program, switching from the local budget to the SPR, the special purpose revenue budget. DPW received $13 million in funding from DOEE in the stormwater permit fund. And that money was moved from DOEE to DPW. And that $9 million is for outlying years. That money is not for the current fiscal year. It's for the outlying years to run that program. So we're not going to spend that $9 million in this fiscal year. Is going to be carry over. The fund balance will carry over from one fiscal year to the next. So once we get through with FY26, we'll use another $4.3 million to fund 27, so forth and so on.
Okay, so you started out saying it's funds being moved from the local budget to the SPR, or is it the other direction?
No. The signed street sweeping program was funded in FY25 in our local budget.
Yes.
We got $13 million from DOEE and put in the DPW budget in FY26. Of that $13 million, 4.3 is being used to fund the street sweeping program and FTEs. And the $9 million left over is in the IT on the line, IT line. It's been loaded there strictly as a placeholder.
Oh, okay. So it has nothing to do with IT?
No, and there won't be any IT purchases made against that funding. That funding will be used in the outlying fiscal year's budget for the FTEs for the street sweeping program.
Why are we budgeting a permanent program this way? By taking funds from SPR?
This was not a DPW initiative.
Okay. All right, so DPW street sweeping services are broken down by signed streets, which receive weekly sweeping, and non-signed streets. How frequently, on average, do non-signed streets receive sweeping services?
So the non-signed streets, it's on an ad hoc basis, usually based on service requests. In addition, we also get to every single street under the leaf season. Remember, we do 2 passes. It has the same function as running a street sweeper through. It's just you're using the leaf vacs to get to the debris that's in the edge of the curb lane as opposed to a mechanical sweeper.
How much of your fleet is composed of mechanical sweepers as opposed to vacuum or regenerative air sweepers?
80% are mechanical, 20% roughly are the regenerative type sweeper.
What type of maintenance is required for each sweeper in the fleet?
That typically is preventative maintenance based upon the hours of runtime.
What do you estimate the maintenance cost is per vehicle?
Given the amount of runtime and the degree of service, it's about, I think, $13,000 per unit per year, roughly.
So with the non-signed streets being ad hoc, there isn't any particular schedule for them other than twice during leaf?
Correct. The focus would be on the assigned routes.
When was the last time DPW updated the signed sweeping map?
I believe it was updated this week.
And was that just because of someone petitioning for a block, or was there a comprehensive update?
It may, I don't know if it was a comprehensive update. I'd have to check for you.
Is the petition process for a block to get street sweeping a requirement by law?
I'm sorry, law, no.
Is there sign sweeping in all of downtown?
Looking at the map, there's, as memory serves me, in the city core, there's a significant amount of coverage in terms of assigned street sweeping. And I can get you a copy of the map if you'd like.
I do have the map. I think we couldn't tell from the map.
Okay.
In fact, we talked about the map this morning with the full council. Everyone is very interested in street
Oh,
sweeping.
okay.
Okay. You might want to send a sweeper by the chairman's house. So, how many sweepers are in DPW's fleet?
I believe right now 72.
How does the size of that fleet compare to peer jurisdictions?
My understanding, speaking with the fleet administrator, it's comparable to our sister jurisdictions.
Okay. And how do you optimize the routes for signed sweeping?
Well, the plan that we'd like to do, and that's consistent with the money that you were talking about with Perry, Mr. Fitzpatrick, is using Rubicon, expanding Rubicon onto the street sweepers. There's a function within that platform that assists with route optimization.
Mm-hmm. Is it harder when you've got scattered blocks that aren't contiguous?
I mean, yeah, you have to take in consideration traffic, travel time, making sure that the routes link most efficiently. And that's where Rubicon, I think, could help.
How many times per shift do they have to empty the vehicles? Typically.
That really just depends on how much debris they encounter. And actually, it depends on the type of sweeper that's deployed as well. So the smaller Timcos hold less than, say, like a Pelican, which the tire front end is a big hopper.
Right.
With the mechanical sweepers like the Pelicans, also they can be accompanied by a dump truck and it can dump into the truck, as I understand it, whereas the Timco has to go to the transfer station and offload.
They wouldn't normally be accompanied by a dump truck on their regular route, though.
I'd have to double check, but I think we do, to try and keep the Pelican sweepers on the route. There are times where we do have the trucks in the area.
Okay. If it's not a legal requirement to petition for signed street sweeping, why is that our system?
To ensure that all of the residents that are impacted by signed street sweeping on the block agree to it. We do enforce street sweeping signs. If you don't move your vehicle within the time frame required, you're going to get a ticket. And it's a manner of providing notice to those receiving that service on the block prior to implementing the service.
Is it still a requirement that there have to be 3 contiguous blocks to add street sweeping service, signed street sweeping service?
I don't know that that's changed, but that was a requirement.
If somebody wants 1 block, but there's a block on either side of it, does that count? Like if there's a gap in the middle?
That I don't know. We'd have to check with program.
Okay, I think we may have run into an issue with that in the past where it was literally, there was no way for them to have 3 contiguous blocks because the blocks on either side of them were already covered, so they couldn't add 3. Okay. How many requests for bulk pickup have been completed within the SLA in the last year?
I believe it's 40,941.
Do you know what the denominator is?
Believe the total is somewhere just short of 50,000. I can get you the exact numbers.
Thanks. There are 16 FTEs for household bulk collections. Are all of those positions devoted to bulk pickup full-time, or do the crews do other work?
Primarily, they only do the bulk work.
But
If there are,
sometimes-
if there are exigent circumstances, say, we have like January was the perfect, not, no pun intended, was the perfect storm where we had 3 NSSEs plus 14.8 inches of snow and a mini polar vortex. We had to use them to make sure that we were getting the mainline trash picked up, and that pushed back the bulk collection. But typically we like to keep them focused on bulk collection only.
How much of a change to operations would it be for bulk collections to occur on a recurring schedule, like once per month by zone, for example?
Anecdotally, it would be pretty significant. We have a GIS analyst who's put a lot of work into it, and through Rubicon actually has gotten the routing pretty efficient. So before they go out, they have a route strung together to get them from A to B and all the collection points in between in the most effective manner possible.
Got it. What's the difference between right-of-way mowing and mowing maintenance?
So right-of-way mowing is the area that most people will probably, those are the areas that most people will probably think of. That's along roads, highways, utility corridors, whereas maintenance mowing refers to just the kind of general umbrella of public space. So that would be your triangle parks, your tree boxes. We get calls for vacant lots when they get overgrown. So that would be more of the maintenance mowing.
There appear to be several enhancements to mowing and maintenance, mowing and maintenance. 1.04 million and 3.5 million mayoral enhancements. What do these enhancements support?
That's the clean corridor or beautification program that the director has spoken about. And the $3.5 million is for salaries. And the $1.04 million is for fringe benefits.
So that is 80 FTEs?
Correct.
The budget chapter narrative notes an additional proposed one-time increase of 2.2-ish million and 11 FTEs in local funds in the agency management division to support the expansion of residential food waste collections. However, we don't see a compost contract in the CBQs for FY26. Is it there in FY25 for program 100151 hauling and disposal? Oh, it is there. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. It is there in FY25 for program 100151 hauling and disposal. There's a decrease of 2.58 million on the budget data contracts line for FY26 for that program. In FY25, the contract was 3 million. How is DPW going to run the compost collection program moving forward?
That $3 million is still budgeted in the waste diversion budget on 7132001.
Oh, you turned yourself off, but I heard you say 7132001.
Yes, it's the line that the budget is.
Okay.
Yes, it's on the contractual line.
Okay. We've been joined by our at-large colleague, Councilmember Christina Henderson. We'll do 10-minute rounds. Okay. Okay, so it's essentially the same amount of money?
Correct.
For FY26, the curbside compost program is about $190 per household. Are there any efficiencies you're looking to bring to the program that could reduce that cost?
So it's my understanding, speaking with my folks in OWD, OWD, that really at this point to achieve meaningful cost reductions, it would be more of like an economy of scale type of you'd have to get to economy of scale. So adding more households to the program, which is what we're trying to do in increments. So the mayor's budget gave us the additional resources to add 3,000 households and bring the program up from 9,000 to 12,000 households. I think it was also alluded to in previous testimony, witness testimony, that we did solicit a request for proposals. So an RFP was put out in Q2 of FY25, and that would cover the collections, haulings, and process for a base year contract plus 4 option years. So that's kind of the plan moving forward. And then additionally in the budget, the budget book, you can see that there are 11 FTEs that are added. And then in the capital side, I believe there's also additional funds that were put in to start to do the requisition process for dedicated trucks, so that at some point we can start to in-house the operations.
Okay, so same amount of money, but expanding households?
Wow, yes, we're expanding the households, and we got additional money to expand or to support that expansion of 3,000 households.
The initial budget was the same from the previous year, the 3,045,000 that you referenced in your question.
Oh,
And the additional money will be on top of that.
where's that?
Yeah, that's in the new budget. It's on the same line. Same budget line, 713,200.
Okay, so the total then is 5 million? Okay. Is the 60,000 household goal for curbside composting accurate?
I believe that's what the Office of Waste Diversion had envisioned for the total program. That's something that we're working towards.
And are we on track to meet that by 2030?
I am not the subject matter expert on curbside composting. I would say that we're on the right track. I think the mayor has is giving this appropriate attention. I think it's a good thing to add the 3,000 households, and to be at 12,000, I think is a good start.
Okay. All right. Coming to snow removal, there appears to be a shift between line items under the snow removal program to increase to snowplow contractual services. Why is that?
Just realigning the budget to meet operational needs.
The $7 million for snow removal never seems to change. So why only budget one-time funds for it?
The one-time funding is done to, I believe, save on the financial plan. If you continue to do it one time, you don't have to plan for it financially for the 5 years. So there's savings to the financial plan.
Does it hamper DPW's ability to plan for snow removal services to have one-time funds?
No, it doesn't.
Can you enter into multi-year contracts with one-time funding?
You can enter into a base year contract with the options to renew if the funding is available.
How many FTEs work on snow removal?
It depends on the year and the amount of snow we get. I'm speaking with our snow czar. I believe this year we had 136 FTEs, 200 temps, and 42 term employees just with DPW addressing snowfall.
And are they all, is that their primary function, or are they from other programs as well?
Well, I mean, the agency's standpoint is that during snow events, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
It's an essential function. But typically during non-snow times, you'll find the bulk of them in the street and alley division. And then we get some assistance from sweep in terms of quality control. We may pull folks for admin from some of the other areas as well. Parking enforcement, some of the admin support comes from there as well.
How much did each snow event cost this year?
Each snow event costs approximately $802,620. And there were 8 snow events in the FY25.
8.
Correct, yes.
No wonder Crispino looks so tired.
I even got behind the wheel of one of the plows.
Is there a projection of the snow budget based on upcoming forecasts?
No, the snow budget stays pretty much consistent, year over year. If additional funding is needed, we believe that the mayor will make that funding available. And the 7 million has been pretty consistent based on expenditures for the previous years.
What was the result of the road salt reduction pilot for the 2024-25 season?
That was administered by DOEE. We participated. We did get the pilot done, I believe, towards the end of the snow season. I'd have to defer to them on the actual results.
Okay, so
and
there wasn't any
efficacy.
savings for DPW on that, or was there?
I don't know, because the cost differential between the materials that we currently use, which is just run-of-the-mill rock salt, and the CMA is the delta is quite large.
What is, oh, okay, so that's calcium magnesium acetate.
Correct.
Is it that's the same thing as brine? Or is that
No,
different?
so the brine is essentially beet juice and a salty liquid. It's just a mixture. The beet juice helps the liquid salt adhere to the roadway longer than rock salt, because as vehicles drive over the rock salt, it gets powderized and can blow off the road and is ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
The CMA, I believe, just has a different melting point. Rock salt at a certain temperature becomes ineffective, where the CMA can work at lower temperatures, is my understanding, and I believe it's supposed to have less of a environmental impact. But I think it'll come down to the results of the study, and then also the cost.
Okay, do you think we'd need to budget additional funds to switch entirely to CMA or brine?
So rock salt costs about $77 per ton. How much? Oh, okay, I was overinflating my number, but rock salt per my AFO cost us $72 a ton this season. To purchase 1 ton of CMA was $4,550. And to give you an idea, to replenish the domes midway through one of the storms, I believe we bought an additional 6,000 tons of rock salt.
Okay. The budget data shows a $700,000 reduction in the fuel contract. Is that a savings or a reduction in purchasing?
That's realignment of funds in the special purpose revenue funds for independent agencies. That money was moved from fuel to the maintenance line in the budget formulation process.
Does the fleet acquisition budget line up with your capital asset replacement schedule?
It lines up with the CARS methodology that the district uses, but we're always working with OBPM to find efficiencies within the system.
What type of vehicles are most in need of replacement?
Currently, I believe it's heavy trucks.
Under light vehicle / equipment maintenance, there's a $779,000 increase in other services and charges. What's that funding intended for?
Could you repeat the question for
Yes,
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
under light vehicle / equipment maintenance, there's a $779,000 increase in other services and charges. What is that funding intended for?
That is the realignment that I just talked about, from the fuel line to that line, that 700K from fuel to the 779 is a net result of 700 moving from there and the remainder moving from another portion in the fleet management administration.
So that puts the proposed budget for light vehicle maintenance at $1 million over what the actual spend was in FY24. Is that justified?
I believe the adjustment, yeah, it is justified. I mean, the vehicles are constantly being run. They need to adjust to cover the maintenance costs, so yes.
Even though you didn't spend that, you spent $1 million less in FY24?
I think over the past fiscal year, the fleet increased in size. I believe the fleet administrator said by over 300 vehicles. So, I mean, as the fleet grows, the costs are going to grow. That would, under that premise, yes, it's justified.
Okay, and then quickly, there's a note in attachment 1 or attachment I of the common budget questions that notes an interest in working with a different parts vendor in FY '26. What's the reason for that change?
So we have a responsibility to ensure that we are operating at the most efficient way we can. And sometimes that includes working with different vendors if they can give better service for a better price. So if we can find somebody that does the job better than Napa, it's something that we would explore through OCP.
Thank you. I'll turn to my colleague for her round.
Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. Good afternoon, Director.
Good afternoon.
I want to start on parking regulation enforcement. So the budget is showing a 2.3 million in decrease and a cut to 54 FTEs in the parking regulation enforcement division. I understand that many of those positions had been funded by ARPA funds, ARPA local funds, which are gone now. But I don't see these folks sort of replaced in some other part of the division. Am I reading the books incorrectly?
Repeat the question again, please.
Parking regulation enforcement,
Okay.
$2.3 million decrease, 54 FTEs.
And that decrease is based on, we lost 52 FTEs or 52 reduction in that in parking enforcement that were eliminated due to vacancy savings. Those positions had been held vacant historically to meet our vacancy savings number. So those positions were eliminated. And then 11 positions were realigned in the Parking Enforcement Management Administration. 9 went from parking regulations to abandoned and junk vehicles, and 2 moved from parking enforcement regulations to booting and towing.
Okay, so I was going to ask you about the abandoned and junk vehicle division.
The increase of the 9 FTEs?
Yes.
Yes, those were realigned from the Parking Enforcement Management.
Is that for the scofflaw vehicle impoundment program or something else?
I mean, if it's just in general, we are supporting the scofflaw. The scofflaw enforcement is one of the highest priorities, is getting those vehicles either off the street or to get the folks to pay their fines and accept responsibility for the driving behavior. So in general, it supports across the board, but yes, they will also be targeting scofflaw vehicles.
Okay. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm glad that we're right sizing the size of this particular division, which I feel like there are a variety of different things where either someone has left a car for multiple weeks on end or other things. How many vehicles have been impounded through this program in FY25?
Bear with me.
There have been 78 total impounds in FY25.
You said 78?
78, yes.
Okay. Of those, how many end up reclaimed?
So in FY25, 859 vehicles were reclaimed so far, 46 auctioned, 547 were scrapped.
Whoa, okay, hold on. All right, so we only auctioned off 46 and the remaining 500 or so, right? About 500?
547.
547 were scrapped. How do we make that decision of auction versus scrapping?
So OCP oversees the auctioning of the vehicles.
Is it an OCP decision if we say it's scrap? What I guess I'm trying to say is there an attempt to auction and then if it is unsuccessful, then it's scrapped? Or do we decide on scrap from the very beginning?
It's a combination of both. So remember, we're taking anything that MPD is not taking, so it's not related to a crime.
Yeah.
We take it in. So we get vehicles of all conditions. Some of the vehicles that we get are burnt out hulls. Like they literally have they're a rusted just frame that vehicle is never going to the auction block.
Yeah.
It's going straight to the scrap. It's just worth more per pound to do it that way. OCP, we work in connection with OCP, and they take a look at the vehicles, and the vehicle has a resale value where, say, we get, I don't know, when I was down at Blue Plains, there was a brand new Jeep freight car that we would absolutely, work with OCP to make sure that we got the most dollar amount back.
Yeah.
As opposed to just selling it for scrap, which would be inefficient.
Got it. Okay. Continuing the trend of FTEs to programs that I appreciate that you all do. The budget has 2 more FTEs for booting and towing. Is that accurate?
Yes, those positions were realigned from parking regulations to, that was part of the levy reduction.
Got it. Okay. And will these additional FTEs enhance an existing crew, or will you be able to now deploy a new crew?
I think they'll actually go to enhancing the crews that are out there.
Okay. How many total crews do we have right now?
I'd have to get that number to you.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's okay. Let's go to other things. All right. I hate that I'm going to ask this question, but you guys deal with this in your world, as do I some with animal control, but dead animal collection.
We do it.
Uh-huh. Now, just for clarity, you only do it in the public space.
Correct. I know, and I think I know where you're going. We do get some service requests, and when we look into it, for instance, I believe one that stood out is a very large deer was either hit by a car and passed away in somebody's yard, but it wasn't close to the public space. It was in the backyard.
Yeah.
For liability purposes, I can't send my folks onto the private property.
Okay. In terms of, now we're showing that you only have 2 FTEs who do this for the whole city. Is that sufficient?
Yes. For the animal collection, yes.
Okay. I think one we had was it was either a deer or or a very large fox, something, but it was, on the edge, but nonetheless, we got it picked up, but, I appreciate the back and forth on that front. Councilmember Nadeau talked a little bit about snow removal, pieces, and Mr. Fitzpatrick, did I say Fitzpatrick or Fitzgerald?
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, okay. I was like, is it Fitzgerald, Fitzpatrick? But I think it's Fitzpatrick. I know that you said that the budget for snow removal isn't necessarily done in terms of based on weather, but if we are seeing trends of increasing number of particular events, do we not budget for that potential?
If we saw a trend that was way out of line, we would budget for that. But again, as I stated to Chairperson Nadeau, that we have been within line of the $7 million budget that we've had for the last few years.
Okay.
So we've been consistently within that range over the last 5 years.
Okay. So there is a cut in terms of snow deployment rental equipment. Hey, hold on. I don't. Okay. Okay, got clarity. All right, so there's a reduction in terms of rental equipment piece for snow removal equipment, but there does seem to be funding in the capital line for snow removal vehicles. Are you all making a shift from purchasing?
We're purchasing more snow equipment, and that causes us to need less to rent on an annual basis. So our rentals will go down, and we will be increasing the purchases of permanent snow equipment.
Okay.
And we're trying, and as we work through that process, we're trying to make decisions where we're not just buying snow specific equipment that's being rented. We're trying to identify the pieces of equipment that may be rented that can also be cross-utilized in other seasons. So for instance, if you rented a heavy dump truck, that heavy dump truck can push a plow, but it also pulls the leaf vac in the fall season. So we're trying to make sure that we're cutting down lease costs where we can and internalizing so that we get the most utilization out of the vehicle. And if I could just circle back, I got clarification. So with the booting crews, we currently have 8 booting crews, 2 persons per crew. So that's a total of 16. And then we have 3 new recruits on hand. So that's another 1.5 crews that we're going to be adding to the arsenal.
Okay. Really quickly, I want to ask about a BSA subtitle. The mayor is proposing that the solid waste disposal fund be repealed, and the non-lapsing account repeals, and that any funds in the account will revert to the general fund. I understand that this reduction is being made, but that there are no FTEs or anything that's kind of associated with that. So I'm curious, what will be the impact of this?
The solid waste disposal fund does have FTEs budgeted in it, and that fund is non-lapsing. I'm not sure the information that you have, but the solid waste disposal fund is non-lapsing, and it's been non-lapsing for the duration that I've been here, which is over 10 years.
Okay.
They don't sweep. They're not going to sweep. They did.
Okay. Apologies. That's all the questions I have for right now, Councilmember. Yes. No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Right, back to me. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
us. You gonna hang out for a bit? No, okay. All right, so, Councilmember Henderson very helpfully got to some of the questions I was going to ask in my next round, so thank you. But to follow up on her question on PEMA positions, does that reflect a change in how you're accounting for vacancy savings in your budget moving forward?
Yes, if you notice that our vacancy savings was approximately around $10 million the last couple of years, and this year it's only $4 million, based on the fact we reduced the 103 FTEs in the budget submission, 52 in parking and 51 in solid waste management administration. And those positions have been historically held vacant to meet the vacancy savings that we took in the budget submission or budget formulation.
Okay, so is your practice to hold back personnel services spending overall or holding open whole positions?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah, is your practice to hold back PS spending overall or hold open whole positions?
A combination.
Okay. To increase booting and towing capacity, do you need more tow cranes or is it more important to add more towing staff?
I know there was testimony from a public witness about this, but we have sufficient tow cranes on hand. And I believe we are fully staffed with the MVOs that operate the cranes as well.
But what if we wanted to increase towing capacity?
I suppose, I mean, this is a combination. So you could increase the towing capacity, but at the same time, then we would probably also have to increase lot space and work with OCP to see if there was any way to actually auction faster. Because remember, what we take in, we have to hold for still 28 days. 28 days to give the owner the ability to make themselves or make the district whole in terms of any outstanding fines that are owed. So at that point, it actually becomes a capacity issue on the back end, waiting for that to clear and then getting the vehicles ready to auction or scrap.
What about increasing booting capacity?
It could work. The issue with booting, we don't like to leave the boots out on the streets very long. Even though we buy quality boots, and I believe we have money in the 26 budget to get more boots, even the best boot can be defeated. And we actually lose a significant number of boots each year, where individuals either, I suppose YouTube is probably a source of information. They're able to free their cars and we don't get the boots back and they're quite expensive. So I'm hesitant to put more boots out there if it's going to actually increase operational costs.
How much do boots cost?
Believe they are $800 a piece.
Okay. Um, for the auction timeline, we did give you the ability to reduce that in the bill, but you will have to do a rulemaking.
Okay. That's to reduce it, I think, to 21 days. Yes.
All right. Is that attachment 1 or attachment I? Okay. Attachment I of your common budget question shows a planned $275,000 grant with the following note. Funding will be used to purchase File ONQ software to integrate with MPD stolen vehicle file real-time, acquire additional vehicle immobilization boots, and impoundment research recovery resource software. Could you explain this further?
So the idea behind this portion of the STEER Act was, or is, that the software will talk between DPW, I believe LPRs, and MPD, MDTs, so that, and vice versa, so that if either vehicle comes across a scofflaw, that an alert is given to the appropriate agency to either go impound or boot the vehicle. That's the idea behind it.
So all you need for that to start happening is software integration?
That's my general understanding is that this, yes, it's
No laws
software.
have to be changed, no different training.
I don't know about the training piece. I can't speak to that. I don't think there has to be any regulatory change. It's not an exchange of confidential information. It's general awareness between the two agencies. Generally, though, when you implement software changes, there usually is training that's associated with it. I don't know what would be required at this point, however.
When do you think this could be up and running?
That I would have to speak with Mr. Gaither, who is the PIMA administrator, and my chief information officer to see if the funding's sufficient, and what the software actually entails. I don't know enough to speak on it in detail.
Has the scrap and auction process continued to improve at impound lots?
It actually has. OCP has been a good partner in terms of the auctions, and we have doubled down on our efforts in terms of the scrapping, and we've been having consistent numbers, I think, since the performance hearing.
Great. Back to sweep for a moment. There's a law that requires 4 sweep inspectors be designated as vector control sweeps that focus on rodent infestations. Do you have those 4 positions designated?
Not that I'm aware of, actually, no.
Okay, we're on notice.
On notice.
Notice, okay. Moving to capital, it appears that fast charging stations for district fleet had its FY26 funding fully cut, $3.4 million. What is the impact of that cut?
There was a $3.4 million request in the FY26 budget, and that was for the extension of this project. And that was cut because the district does not have a comprehensive electrical program, how we're going to implement the electrical program. And so they cut the funding in this year, and we are in the process of conducting a comprehensive electrical electrification project needs for the district. And once that's done, we'll be able to purchase more electrical charging stations and be able to put them efficiently and effectively throughout the district.
Does DPW still have use for the remaining $2.8 million allotment?
Yes.
And it is,
So we are working, I believe we already have engaged the services of a consultant to help us develop the EV rollout. And the funds will be partially used for that, but in addition, I think we still have some of the fast chargers on hand, and that I think some of that money can go towards that as well. So yes, there is use towards advancing the project aims.
you have the fast chargers on hand, meaning you'd use that money to what, install it or
It would-
install them?
Yeah.
Install, yes.
So they're essentially like warehouse right now or?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Where would you install them?
That's what the plan is going to determine.
Engaging the consultant will help us make sure that we put it in the most appropriate, efficient spot.
So you need capital dollars to do the actual install or to buy more?
Right now, I believe it would be more towards the install since we have some of the chargers on hand.
Will DPW be able to absorb the $2.8 million reduction in Benning Road modernization without having to modify the project?
No.
Can you provide an update on the project?
So it's my understanding that we are working through the permitting process to do the next phase of abatement. Once that phase of abatement occurs, we will then move towards demolition. I believe that the solicitation for the designer just closed in the past 2 weeks. And then that has to undergo, I believe, technical review. So the process is actually moving forward.
So you need that 2.8 million back to be able to complete the design?
I believe we have the money in it right now for the design phase of it.
Okay. But if you don't have that 2.8 million, doesn't it impact the design?
Not just the design, but the entire project. We're going to need the $2.8 million to complete the project.
To do demolition and remediation?
The entire
Well,
project.
the
entire project.
construction as
What's
well.
the total budget for the entire project?
I believe it's $101 million.
Okay. The 1241 W Street Northeast project was fully zeroed out. What was the intended use of those funds?
Those funds were for the build of a facility for our collections division. And that's one-time funding. That funding was for FY 25. And we're in the process of building that facility. And once that, we have the adequate funding in 25 to complete that entire project. So
Got
there
it.
was no need for funding in the outlying years.
Got
Correct.
it. Okay. Is the budget for your heavy vehicles broken out by type of heavy vehicle? For example, how much of that budget is for trash trucks, for sweepers or tow cranes?
When it's initially, the money is, the total budget is generated primarily with the use of cars, but then once that chunk of money comes over to fleet, they work with the administrations or the different agencies to best determine what type of vehicles within each of the buckets is needed. So they work with the operational folks to make sure that they're buying the appropriate number.
What is the proposed budget for new public litter cans in FY 26?
In FY 26, litter cans budget is $300,000.
How does that compare to the current year?
For the last 3 years, the average budget was 274,811.
Okay. What operational changes would you have to make to fulfill requests for litter cans on residential streets?
I mean, as you add more capacity, or more cans to service, you have to have more capacity. So at some point, as we look at the number of cans that we service across the district, we would have to add more resources, i.e. trucks and people.
I mentioned the parking enforcement bill earlier. Now that the law is effective, have you Have you started the process of rulemaking and implementation?
No, but we will.
It's now authorized to impound a vehicle immediately if it has a fake or missing plate or a plate cover. Do you plan to use that authority?
Yes,
On what timeline?
immediately. My folks are watching the hearing, so they're on notice.
All right. I have questions about the subtitle in the BSA, subtitle 6, operations and infrastructure, subtitle A, sport utility vehicles. The
Okay.
mayor's BSA includes a subtitle that would lift the restriction on acquisition of SUVs for the fleet if the SUV is an electric vehicle. Do you think this subtitle is important for DC government operations?
Well, it's consistent with the overarching plan to electrify the fleet. So if we're buying electric SUVs, then yes, I think that that's an important step forward. When we're talking about the SUVs, as you've mentioned, those vehicles, I believe, typically are reserved towards things that are in heavy use, such as DPW, DDOT, law enforcement, I think DFS or OCME, when they're performing very specific functions related to law enforcement. And I know the fleet administrator tries to adhere to that as strictly as possible. If you want to deviate, typically a director would have to seek approval from the city administrator's office.
Do you have a process for agencies to request exemptions to the SUV restriction, or is that what you just mentioned is appeal to the city administrator?
I mean, that's what I just mentioned. It's
Okay.
it's generally a memorandum that gets forwarded up through the fleet administrator, through me to the city administrator for further action.
In reviewing the fleet report, we found several agencies with SUVs acquired after this restriction had taken effect in 2002. Is that something you're aware of?
I mean, I am now.
SUVs in the DC fleet by agency and vehicle acquisition year include one DDOT SUV in the office of the director, one DDOT IPMA, one DDOT IT system, 2 OIG, 1 DGS facilities, 6 DFS, 4 chief medical examiner, 5 State Board of Education security, 1 DOEE pesticide, 2 DFHB, and 1 OUC.
So just running through the list. So OIG, those would be law enforcement type of vehicles since they have the powers of arrest. DGS facilities, I assume that has to do with outdoor landscaping work. DFS, I know those vehicles are for crime scenes, so that's related to helping MPD process scenes. The chief medical examiner, those are typically related to morgue activities or mass casualties, so it would fit under an exemption. UDC, I'd have to look more, but I would say that security or their police force. For hire vehicle does regulation enforcement, so that I would venture a guess that that's an interceptor type vehicle related to enforcing regulations against hacks. Then there's the security pesticide. I would believe that's probably a pickup or an SUV that's hauling liquid-based herbicides would be my guess. OUC, I'd have to look into, as well as the IMPMA and the IT systems.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of criticism of the recent acquisition of Rivian electric pickups because of their high cost. What decision-making went into that fleet acquisition?
That was a request that was made. I believe those vehicles are with the Department of Transportation. When the request was made, it went towards the electrification goals. The difference, I believe, between the current vehicles that the district uses that are completely electric in nature and the Rivians is that, so for instance, the Ford F-150s that DPW use, those are by design a retrofit from an internal combustion engine, whereas the Rivians were built from the ground up as an electric vehicle. And I believe when DDOT was taking a look at the vehicles, some of the features that those vehicles include surrounded safety. So for instance, I believe Rivian designed the vehicle so that the battery pack is sandwiched between the vehicle chassis rails. So in the event of a side impact, there would be less chance of a battery puncture and a resulting fire. I don't know off the top of my head how much the vehicles cost per unit or what the total size of the contract was that went through fleet. But OCP would have been involved, and given the size of the purchase, it would have had to undergo legal review as well. And then ultimately council review, because presumably if they bought any number of vehicles, it would exceed the $1 million threshold.
Do you normally buy a certain number of vehicles at a time?
I think it depends on the need, and then it also depends, I think, on the contracting vehicle that's used. Sometimes when agency is able to buy a block of vehicles, you get a cheaper price than if you were to buy just a handful here and there.
Do we usually pay MSRP?
s- we use a variety of different buying agreements. So we try to use cooperatives where possible because that's a lower price. That's where different municipalities are all purchasing together. We use the GSA scale, which would allow us to avoid the MSRP, but there are probably some instances on specialty vehicles where we're not buying a large number and we need the vehicle fast that we pay MSRP.
Okay.
Would be my guess, my educated guess.
Okay. Oh, there they are. Got it. Do you have concern about the potential impact to DOE programs and other stormwater mitigation from the budget shifts that are in the mayor's proposal for FY26?
As it relates to DPW, no. So we work very closely with DOE. I think as I testified at my performance hearing, I mentioned it, but I'm quite pleased to say that we work very closely with DOE on those issues. In particular, DPW, given the number of facilities we have and the heavy industry use that we employ, we traditionally were at the bottom of the scale when it came to the conditions of our lots and what was going into the storm drains. I'm happy to report that we have a passing grade on all of our lots, and that our reductions actually earned our program manager the stormwater management manager of the year, which was awarded by DOE. In addition, I know there's been talk about transferring money back and forth and responsibility of street sweeping. DPW, just by the very nature of the operations we perform, we are meeting the EPA requirements that were put forth to keep sediments out of the storm drains. We're keeping the leaf particulate out of the storm drains. So operationally, I don't think it's going to change the impact that DPW has. And we stand by DOE and will offer it whatever support it needs.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is that funds that were sent from DOE to DPW are meant to fulfill our obligations under the Clean Water Act and our MS4 permit. And street sweeping alone can't do that. And of course, that was an activity that was happening already, in addition to what those funds were going to. And so what do you propose if we get confirmation that the funding needs to be shifted back to DOE, or we're going to be losing federal funding or be fined on a daily basis?
That's a difficult question to answer. I'm not sure the level or the exposure that they have, or the amount of matching funds that they're using that stormwater fund. I know that they've carried a large fund balance historically in that fund for the last few years. So, we would have to work closely with them to have conversations regarding that.
It's my understanding that mechanical sweepers aren't as effective as other types of sweepers when it comes to improving water quality. Do you plan to account for this as you acquire new sweepers?
We're always working with industry to utilize the most efficient vehicle types. Mechanical sweepers are better suited for certain circumstances, whereas the regenerative air ones work better in others. So, for instance, several of the newest sweepers we acquired for the highways are mechanical sweepers, and that's simply because some of the materials that you encounter on the side of the highway are just too heavy for the regenerative air sweepers to pick up. Oftentimes what you'll see, and this is also consistent with what we found during leaf season when the leaves get wet, and residents, I'm sure, can attest to this. You can tell when a street sweeper's gone through by the markings that it leaves in the dirt patterns on the side of the road. And when the regenerative air sweepers hit materials that they can't pick up, there's a wedge under there that directs the materials to the intakes. And what you'll see is a line of materials, wet materials or heavy materials that weren't able to be picked up. This matters, especially in light of the testimony that was given by the Bike Association, especially like loose gravel that comes off of dump trucks. The mechanical sweepers will get that, whereas the regeneratives won't always. And that leaves a debris field, which if you were on a bike and you were negotiating a turn, you're going to probably wipe out. So we try to balance the needs with what we buy. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but we are cognizant of that, and we try and take the input that we receive from residents and from different associations into our purchasing decisions.
Do you ever have both types of sweepers complementing each other on a route?
Yep. During the corridor cleanups, we do that. In addition, the bike lane sweepers that we bought, which are smaller regenerative air sweepers, we'll even use those alongside with the bigger sweepers, where the bigger sweeper will get the roadway, and then the smaller bike lane sweeper will get into the areas that the larger sweeper cannot. And sometimes that's a Pelican and a bike lane sweeper, or a Timco and a Pelican. It just depends on the circumstances.
Okay. I think that's going to be it. This concludes today's budget oversight hearing. If you have not yet submitted written testimony, please do so by submitting it on the council's hearing management system. The record for this hearing will close at 5:30 p.m. on July 1st, 2025. Thank you very much for your testimony today. We appreciate it. The time is now 5:03 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.